You know the Strasburg Railroad for their tourist operations, but what about their freight? Today on the Roundhouse, we're going to learn more about that. All aboard!
In days past, the roundhouse was where the railroad worker united with the steam locomotive, each to prepare for the journey ahead. Today, it's where we examine the history, the industry, the machines, the hobby, and the passion behind railroading. News, interviews, stories, and more. So climb aboard. This is The Roundhouse.
Welcome to The Roundhouse. I'm your host, Nick Ozark, and this is episode number 85 of our Trains and Railroading podcast, where we take a look at everything in the industry and the hobby. You name it, we discuss it. Today, we are going back again to the 2018 Heritage Rail Alliance Conference at Strasburg Railroad, and we're hearing a presentation from Steve Weaver, Vice President of Freight Services, who's talking about how the Strasburg Railroad incorporated freight operations into its model. In advance, if some of the things are kind of hard to follow because he was using a PowerPoint presentation, I apologize for that. Hopefully it still makes sense and is easy to flow. I also want to apologize because I know that I haven't been releasing a lot of episodes lately, and I do feel bad about that. I have a pretty good excuse in that I'm about to get married in a month and a half, but I still want to try to get back to at least once a month. So my apologies about that, but hopefully you're still enjoying the show. If you're relatively new to the show, I encourage you to check our backlog. Again, 85 episodes for you to check out, and I appreciate your support throughout the series. Of course, today's episode is sponsored by the Age of Steam Roundhouse, who just acquired Bessemer Lake Erie number 643, so congratulations to them. Check out their tour schedule at ageofsteamroundhouse.org. With that said, let's hear from Steve.
My name is Steve Weaver. I'm Vice President of Roadway here at the Strasburg Railroad Company, and focus mostly on that and strategic development. But what I'm going to do here is tell you a story of our common carrier balance between freight and heritage rail. I have a few slides that help illustrate this. This one, so this is what I call a heart slide. When people who are doing touristic, historic, or excursion railroading want to haul freight, this is what they imagine the end product to be. An August morning, soybean field, steam engine at the point. What do we got there? 7 cars being hauled across the fields with a DT&I caboose on the hind end. But I even chose this picture just even for someone who has eyes to see. This picture even flags some of the issues that you run into when you start hauling freight on a touristic, historic, or excursion line. That particular caboose does not have glazing. And so we got a friendly conversation with our regional MP&E rep saying, what is that? Is that a crew car? I said, no. There's fare-paying passengers on the end of that mixed train. And so we had like a 5-gallon bucket in there where you throw $15 in cash and you get to ride down to the interchange, hop off in a safe place, and watch the switching take place, and then ride back to Strasburg. So they said, okay, because the car has a split personality. In touristic, historic excursion, its historic glazing is quite adequate. It's quite fine for whatever you're doing, but on a freight train, it would need to be glazed according to the FRA glazing standards. So I like to point that out. It sort of pops the bubble of a beautiful summer morning, but it illustrates some of the hurdles that we have to face when we do this. This picture was taken August 2013 and illustrates some of the car loading we were doing at that time. These are probably organic corn. Maybe one of those is organic soybean meal. in the front is some biodiesel. We've been a common carrier since we started operations, and we're not quite sure the exact year. Kurt Bell or some of our other historians would know that better. We believe it was sometime shortly after the Philadelphia and Columbia began operations, because our line was graded in 1837, and then just sat there without ties or rail for a while. Of course, we hauled a freight, almost always mixed. In fact, I have a picture. This farm, which is right behind the caboose, belongs to a cousin, and I have a picture taken by my wife's maternal grandmother of a Strasburg Railroad freight train, almost in that exact position, 1914. Yeah, with a 440 and a string of box cars with a combine at the end. So it's neat to have those two pictures together. So, and then freight, once the trolley came to Strasburg, freight pretty much eclipsed everything up to the Hurricane Hazel in 1954. That's when the line was washed out in a number of places, and the homeshires did not have enough money to make the repairs. The principal homeshire at that time then died, and the railroad went into his estate. It was then found by our current stockholders, and they, of course, made that famous purchase and began, but their whole idea to do this, and as we look through the early correspondence, was strictly to begin moving freight again between interchange and the mill complex up here in the triangle at what was the former 896 and Route 741. Yes. So they were doing that for maybe a year, and then it was that one Sunday in 1959 that they just ran a passenger car on a Sunday just for a lark, and then just realized they could make a lot more money quicker by doing passengers. And also, as we'll be the very first ones to say, we were lucky. We were in the right place at the right time and had things going for us. We did common carrier service all the way up till about 2006. We had a very easy customer. It was a plastics plant in Lampeter. They did all the transloading. There was they took care of the electronics. Well, at that time, this would have been paperwork. They did everything. All we did was spot cars on the siding. They unloaded them. That business began in earnest in the summer of '77. I was on one of the first trains that started that, and then really built to we were getting significant traffic, and then recycling in the Northeast dried up that business. About 2006 through 2009, we would have maybe 2 to 5 rail cars a year. An occasional car of lumber, a box car now and then, hardly anything. In 2009, the director said, look, we have assets, we have physical plant, we have a certain amount of depth in our labor force. Why can't we just open up another cash line by beginning to run common carrier freight? And they knighted me. I was the senior car inspector at that time. Don't tell me what the mix was. Knighted me to figure it out. So I put on my plaid suit and began visiting customers and prospective customers on the railroad. We learned an awful lot of things in that time. We learned that the landscape had changed. It had become a lot more complicated. The railroads were moving from paper and fax waybill reporting into electronic. It was a crazy learning curve, but it did all right the first couple of years. I would say 2009 through 2013 we made money on this. I mean 2010 through 2013. 2009 was just sort of the end of the year, and then we lost some products because we immediately became part of the global logistics stream, and that's what made it difficult. So, for example, this train illustrates this. Now, we still haul this customer's products, these hopper cars. This customer up here, we do not. He currently is able to get biodiesel from Brazil at a lot cheaper price in the port than he can from produced domestically. And so, yeah, we were hauling, at one point in the winter of one year, we hauled 50 of his cars in 1 month, and all of a sudden, whoosh, it just dried up. Same with the organic corn. Strong dollar a couple of years back. All of a sudden, organic corn went offshore, started coming through the ports of Wilmington and Baltimore, and that dried up. So when you do freight, unlike that plastics customer who we just thought, or who we had forever, and really to have one customer that long, 77 to 2006, that's almost 20 years, or 30 years, we were spoiled. We really were spoiled. What I'm finding now is we have a constantly rotating portfolio that we have to adjust ourselves to. We have fixed physical plant. We can't go anywhere, though we have some flexibility, whereas our customers are easy come, easy go. And so that's somewhat of a challenge. The other thing that we discovered was what I'm showing in this next slide, and that is, it's one thing to haul 18-ton axle loading on your railroad. It's another thing to haul 31-ton axle loading. And so we started to get beat up. We got beat up real good. This is an example of the entrance to our yard in Lemon Place. I like that picture, first of all, because it's the original 12-degree curve. It's also, the rail that's there is 85 and 80-pound rail left over from the 1910 realignment of the Pennsylvania Railroad. When they did the realignment, they gave us the rail and Strasburg laid it. So that track was laying there since the 1910 realignment till about 2010. But you can see the tie spacing, you can see how thin it is. And as we would tiptoe over that with 286,000 pound cars, I just told Lynn, I said, look, we're going to go on the ground. And he said, I know. But we never did. It was just a miracle.
As long as you admitted you were.
Yeah, well, we knew what we were facing. Same with our bridge. Once again, 1837 abutment. And when the FRA new bridge and culvert plan came out and we had to document and engineer everything, the engineers said, I can't blueprint that bridge. I don't know what good that bridge is for. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he says, I can make some wild guesses, but it's not going to do long term. So that's when we applied for state grants. Now, of all the grants that are open to transportation systems in the continental U.S., your state grant programs are probably the easiest to access. RIF loans, Tiger grants, now CRISI grants, they're more difficult, and yet there is a lot of money on the table right now, especially at the federal level. In any given year, PennDOT will have maybe 35, 40 million on the table for its state grant program. Right now, there's $500 million on the table in the federal grant program, but you need a handler to walk you through that because it's, frankly, I found myself really challenged just doing the state grant and its requirements. And so running the gamut of those federal grants, I mean, we're examining it, but it's a challenge. This is what we were able to achieve with our 2010 application. This is just about the same location. Oh, really? Yeah. 12 degree, we stretched it out to a 7-degree curve. We made it a perfect grade. And the whole reason for that is it looks a little bit like a ski jump here. You come out through Lemon Place, you go through a sag, and then you immediately settle into 1.35% grade territory. So we made it so the freight trains coming out of Lemon Place can walk it right up to 15 mile an hour and get a run on the hill. So that was good. We were also able to change the roadbed. When we dug this up, and by the way, you probably see all the gauge bars in here. That was my other secret weapon. When we were digging this up, we found just what you would expect for 1837 grading. So slightly crowned road would have been packed with by animals pulling rollers, and then above that, about 3 to 4 inches of cinders, and above that, 6 inches of 2B, which would have been put down by the railroad in the 60s. So over here, we were able to go to standard ARIMA roadbed. I was able to go down to 30 inches. Put down the fabric, the modified, and then over top that, what we call monkey fist ballast, number 3/4 ash toe. Yeah, it's all the difference in the world. That's a piece of railroad I won't have to worry about the rest of my career. Though we do our main thing that we do just among ourselves is tie replacement each year, trying to stay within the guidelines. For us, it's about 3 to 4%. And I can get down in the weeds here with roadway because I get excited about that. The bridge, we were able to replace with this structure. We talked to a number of people, a number of engineers, what would they recommend, and they came up with this Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western sort of look. That bridge was cast in 1 week, and then it was cured for a couple weeks after that, and the whole thing was put into place in 1 day. Yeah, so the bridge, we had a 14-day outage, and the bridge was, which is during a season when we don't run, the first part of the month of November, and then then the bridge was put in, and it all came in under budget. That's a $425,000 bridge, including the approaches. So we were very happy about how that came out. We did. If you poke around the yard, you're still going to find this steel support, and you're going to find the two I-beams. That we couldn't necessarily engineer, but we kept that for posterity.
How about the stone?
Down here, which stone?
No, the abutment.
Oh yeah, we have a pile of those we've used in some other things around here, more decorative. Yeah, because that's part of limestone, ashlars stacked like that are part of early Pennsylvania railroading. So it's pretty neat. So that's what we had to do, because I mean, what you see going on, this is the first run over the bridge. As soon as it was finished, they had just finished tying the rails together, and then I knew that was the schedule and radioed the train. You're clear through, so they're tiptoeing across the first run. But it's so it can handle that axle loading that you see up there in the upper left-hand picture.
Now, were those grants, clear grants? You didn't have to purchase?
No, they were what are popularly known as public-private partnership. So it was a 70-30 match. They would contribute 70% of the capital. We would match it with the 30, and we had to demonstrate that we had that and all those kind of things in the process. Those are very good programs to participate in. In our jurisdiction, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, you have to get an actual line item in the state's capital budget. So if you go back there in the 2010 budget, you will see for Strasburg Railroad Company, main track rehabilitation, X dollars. And that we had to do that first, then we applied for the grant. This is a slide I used from the Eastern Region Short Line where I presented there about what we've done. And I just lifted that slide right out because this is a key to us as well. Business, we take time to get to know our customers' business and their logistics. And that's once again another heart to head transition. Once again, my colleagues, the T&E crews and all, this is what they like. It's, how many cars we get today, right? Yeah. But to me, it's like, I need you back at Strasburg now. You're going to meet trucks, boom, 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 get it done. So that's always a little bit of a source of tension. We were able to run mixed trains like you saw on the first slide and this slide, because we had a different interchange arrangement when we first started. Right now, and by the way, we get very, very good service through Norfolk Southern. We don't have the complaints a lot of people have. Lancaster Yard just has a different culture. They're running their delivery freights in between 600 series trains on the Keystone Corridor, and they are a hot shot. They're good crews. So they make it happen. And at this particular time, the reason we stopped this was we were getting interchange right around midnight. Well, that's great. I can check my electronics sometime in the early morning. I can see indeed that interchange was made. If it wasn't, I would call the steam crews up and say, bag it, don't fire the engine up till normal time. You can still see the early morning sun here. That locomotive then would just come right off that train and then just go right on the timetable train. So it was like a seamless thing. I wasn't messing with passenger schedules or anything. Now they're making delivery at 7 in the morning. And aside from visual verification, and that's 2 hours later than the call time for that steam engine crew to get the thing fired up. So it just wasn't working out. That's the main reason we dropped the mix. But we're getting to the place where we probably will have daily service. They really can, I've had them run down from Lancaster Yard 12 miles away just to deliver one boxcar. Because I said it was hot, I needed it. So we remember that at Christmas time. I go up there with, meats and cheeses and those kind of things, try to take care of the crews. Great crews up there. But this part was the main thing. This generation of business folks do not have any living memory of rail transport, especially if they're offline. Their grandfathers would have been the last folks to really know, and the thing they like best is what I told the directors. I was adopting the posture of a friendly neighborhood freight agent. And now Diane Bryant, my colleague, she's not here in this presentation, but we hired her last year, and that's what she is, a friendly neighborhood freight agent. She sits down, what do you need? And sometimes people will say, I'm perfectly happy with my logistics. That's great. If ever you are not, and if ever you would like to do comparative pricing, I'll be glad to sit down and get rates for you. Most people are curious about that, and so they'll at least let us look up some things with that. But that's been our whole approach, and trying to keep the the head part, not so much the heart part. Though I used to sign up just like anyone else to run those or be in the caboose. So I get the heart.
Every horse needs a stable, especially those made from iron. The Age of Steam Roundhouse is a brand new facility constructed less than a decade ago, housing nearly 24 steam locomotives. The facility features an 18-stall, accurately reconstructed brick roundhouse surrounding a 115-foot turntable, the largest private collection of steam locomotives in the world, and a fully functioning working back shop where skilled staff actively continue to restore and repair steam locomotives. Having visited multiple times, I could say that it's a very different experience from other museums. Now, the Age of Steam Roundhouse is opening its doors to the public. Tours will be offered Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, May through October 2019, of the Roundhouse and shop area. Tickets can be purchased in advance, and to see their other upcoming events, follow them on social media and visit their website at ageofsteamroundhouse.org.
I like this picture. I've been trying to choose these pictures. Each picture's worth 1,000 words. This is an aerial view of our rail yard, and we do not have any online customers right now. Everything is strictly transload, and we do it all out of this 60,000 square foot window from about here down to here. So there's a car repair business there. Here is transload of grain. This is some center beams. This is the liquid pipeline that we put in, 6-car spot, non-hazmat, that we were doing there. And since that picture was taken, which is, September 2012, and incidentally, we were doing freight. You can see a truck there is transloading during a Thomas event. That's the only time those tents are up. So I like that picture, and as soon as I saw it on Google, I keep going back and I capture pictures from Google down through the years to have them. And that one just illustrates what we were trying to do in the middle of an event like that. So we do it all out of 60,000 square feet. So you don't need a lot to get started. You'll see here one asset we bought right away in 2009 is a grain elevator, and that takes grain from the hopper cars, loads out 25-ton trailer in 10 minutes. Yeah, it's a high-speed conveyor, and so we're able to do those kind of things, any kind of agricultural commodity. And so starting with that footprint is how we got this thing going again. And we try to encourage people. It doesn't need a lot of space, and yet we are constrained. We're currently at the number of carloads now that we're going to have growing pains in this space 2018 and into 2019 until we build something else. It's just going to get a little bit crazy.
What room do you have to expand or potentially?
Here? None. We have no room here in East Strasburg. In fact, it's not really a secret among our management and our directors that we would like to get freight out of East Strasburg and get it somewhere else where the mess doesn't matter quite as much, because you will create a mess as soon as you start doing freight. I have a picture taken from this coal wharf right here, looking that way, December 19th, 2009. And it's funny, it's a snowy day. It's our number one train coming in on a snowy day. And there's nothing over here. It's just this white field, and it looks glorious. Yes. And I should have thrown that in there just to show the difference. And now we got, like all this junk, right? And even here, what you can't see, we've since put up a pole barn in this space to handle weather-sensitive lumber. And our customer, it was one of those things the customer actually paid for the pole barn. Yeah, it was because it was going to be exclusively for their products, so we put that in there. And so there's creative things that can be done, but it's soon starting to tap out. Here's the thing, and here's some of the cachet that we entered into. In talking to this particular customer, you notice these lines here. These are not parking spaces. They are inventory lines. We drew inventory lines on that right after we paved it, and we labeled the lots A, B, C, D, and E. And the customer doesn't even touch their lumber. In other words, it comes in here, we inventory it, because guess what? As soon as it becomes a freight station and you break bulk, you have to generate the inventories. That's part of that's from time immemorial. So all of a sudden we had to get into inventory control. Same thing with the tank cars. And so we do the inventory control, and we say, we got so many units, you will find them exclusively in Lot D. And then they send third-party truckers who call and talk directly to our transload guys, and they get loaded, they're out. And you try to pick up a little bit of money anywhere you can. So they, at that time, they did not have a forklift here, so we were unloading the car and loading their customers' trucks at a $45 an hour rate, or its functional equivalent. Now they have a little forklift shed here, and then we also have 3 of our own. But that's a service we offer. We tell a customer, look, even if you don't own trucks, but you want to have it, we'll arrange the trucking, we'll load it on, we'll get it to you, and that has exploded the lumber business. So, yeah, it's a service. You're offering a service, and one of the things we always talk with our transload guys as they're coming on and we're orienting them, in addition to their safety, is just, look, someone paid precious money for this, and our job is to get it there without a scratch. And they really internalize this. Just to give you an idea of commodity costs, I don't know what kind of cars those are, I can't tell from here, but they're covered hoppers, but I don't know what's in them. If it was organic soybean meal, that's $1 million car of commodity. It just makes your head spin. So once they got the idea that that's how much that car costs, well, then they're going to spill less. They're just going to be very, very careful with the commodity. So yeah, we have Lancaster County in general has a real land crunch. There's agriculture, there's industry, there's all kinds of things competing for space, and then there's also people moving in, and so that's a real challenge for us. So we're always talking with our neighbors, talking about opportunities. You'll see there was another seminar on preserving viewscape and all that. So that's the other tension. I don't talk to neighbors. There's no point in talking to neighbors who have viewscape that we really treasure. Most of the development I'm looking at is actually at our Lemon Place yard, which actually takes me to my next slide. I love this picture because it's highly illustrative of just regulatory environment, operating environment, just all the things that become front and center as you go from, say, an occasional Christmas train or something. This all of a sudden puts you into an environment where you might not like to be, but you just have to deal with it, which is what we had to do. Over here, 10 mile an hour track. Over here, 120 mile an hour track. Notice the historic track centers, 13 feet. So, guess what? Nothing happens on the hot side. We got written into our operating rules. Nothing happens on the hot side. don't worry about inspecting your cars till you get them off interchange to a nice safe place. If you need to push a defective car back for the car inspectors, we can do that, but you're not going to touch it there. This is very interesting too, because even though the NS deliveries are coming, Lancaster's that way, by the way, coming in this Rule 263 territory now, where they know how to run both tracks and they have all kinds of functionality. All this that you see in this picture is owned by Amtrak. And so the yard we rehabilitated down there and everything, we're the tenant. That's very, very common in the Northeast, where Amtrak owns huge swaths of land, and then whatever railroad, whether it's Pan Am or Essex or whoever, they're working on an Amtrak footprint at their interchange. For years, that was sort of a loopy relationship, sort of like having a crazy uncle. Lately, it's gotten really good. We have good relationships at 30th Street. Partly is, once again, I have to cultivate them, have to go down there, have to meet with people, schmooze and whatnot. And so now expansion opportunities that we have are located in the Lemon Place Paradise area, which is good, because then that gets it out of the tourist tapestry, the excursion tapestry that we're trying to preserve up here. And we're actually going into that more. So other issues that are raised by this picture are you need to be aware not only of my roadway worker protection plan, but Amtrak's roadway worker protection plan. Right now, what you're looking at, this particular piece of track we do not lease, and so they still have to do the maintenance on it. We're moving towards where we will be leasing that. But so I have to when I'm doing stuff down there, now I'm going on the property, even though we're the lessee, I'm going on there as an Amtrak contractor, and I have to comply with their roadway worker protection plan. I and my guys have to be recertified each year with that, which is okay. It's actually it helps us with refresher training. And it's also free to us as a contractor, so that's nice. But then I'm presenting what I'm doing, which is usually on the field side over here somewhere, and also, but how I'm complying with his hot rail envelope, which is 25 feet off his hot rail. So those are some of the things that are raised just by having effectively mid 20th century railroading on one side, or even earliest 20th century, and then on the other side, 21st century railroading. Back when I started, this switch actually had its own catenary. It still could be served by a motor if need be. Had its own catenary. So part of our operating rules, you just don't go on the top of the car.
Now, are you or your crews ever having to work that switch? Because that looks like that's CTC controlled. Yeah,
that's actually it's more than CTC now. This is this can be hand thrown, of course, but this switch has to be open before that switch can be open. And this is now PTC access, Amtrak's access system, and it also will have. And so all the NS units who run on this line are Amtrak access equipped. Now there will be an interoperability sometime in the future. No, we've had informal arrangements over the years where we've been able to come out and place a piece of equipment on the hind end of something, but those have been very informal, what I would call after hours, didn't really happen kind of events. But right now, no. Do I have a key for the switch? Absolutely. Do I ever use it? Absolutely not. So it's just the way it is. So it's this is a real wall of separation here in more ways than one. Like I said, we're pleased with our Class 1 partners, especially when I talk to colleagues and I find out that they don't always have the same level of cooperation or.
What's your car capacity as far as how many can be
drilled in there? Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, the car capacity right here at point of switch is 14, a little bit more. That's a problem. That's part of what we're working on. And so that's my current project. Just able to survey this whole area up and down here late winter. And yeah, we're identifying some options that we want to work out with Amtrak and to double the capacity of the interchange track. So yeah, stay tuned.
And then as far as if there's hypothetically in the future more transloading going on at Lehman Place, does that, since you aren't getting as many miles traveled over your line, does that affect the revenue or? No, there's a number of different arrangements that a Class 1 will have with the short line. The vast majority are what are called handling line characters. They are characters. Carriers. That's very much like a franchisor, franchisee operation. It's like plug and play. Norfolk Southern gives us the deliverables. They say, this is what's required, and we say, thank you. And then we have a rate, a default rate, and then rates for various specialty commodities, depending on what it is. There's also junction settlement carriers and then switch line carriers. And those are more sophisticated levels of cooperation, all of which assume more and more responsibility. And so for us right now, handling line carrier works very well. And so when NS quotes a bill, whether it's Rule 11 or not, to say BNSF for an outbound product, that includes the Strasburg rail transport portion within it, within the bill. And that's also an area we have flexibility. So if this is going to be a lot of moves and a lot of things going on, we'll drop that handling line charge with NS in order to make it more lucrative. So we have a fair amount of flexibility in that. If it's a very high value item to NS, something they really value, they'll pay us a lot more than the default rate. And so the cost structure is this way. We tell the customer what you've been quoted by the Class 1s, whether individually or under Rule 11 or one big package, is your rail freight price. And then to transload your car, we have the following panel of services. If you have your own trucks and you're going to do everything yourself and you have your own forklifts, because some do, then your charge is going to be this for transload. If you want the entire soup to nut package, we have this. We'll arrange the trucking. Of course, we'll run it by them to see what their requirements are. Sometimes with grain, they might say, well, it has to be under X amount of bushel if I'm going to make any money on this or something. And then, as I mentioned before, our labor charge, $45 an hour to do whatever else they want. And they really like that full service as much or as little as they want. One guy gets what I would call very high-end cabinet plywood. We have a lot of kitchen and bathroom manufacturers. Yeah, and that plywood is so it's crazy expensive. Real multi-layer birch and veneers and cherry, and so he wants that just handled with like white gloves. Yeah, so when there's a transload day for him, and we don't begrudge this at all. He comes down with his men. He's there. He's like he's watching the process. He's taking pictures, and we just say, "Is everything? Are you happy?" Or and because we want him to be happy with what we're doing. Other guys, I don't want to see the logistics chain. I have a third-party trucker coming in, and he's taking X amount of lumber up into New York State, which I kid you not. We actually serve 4 states out of our yard. Yeah, because a lot of that is just bit pieces, and they're a distributor, and so they're playing the market and getting people just exactly the one little product they want. So yeah, we have trucks running to Maryland. They said they've told us that we're characterized by less damage than the other transloads. So yeah, that's all we have. But you still can't, like banding errors at the mill, or if we see any damage at all, we take a picture of it before it comes out of the car. That way it's like, this is the way it came. There it was. Yeah. All right. Well, our time's up, and yeah, there we have. I'll be glad to stick around a little bit if you have any other questions.
And now, the question of the day.
Last time on the Roundhouse, we were talking to Kathy Millett, modeler extraordinaire and judge on the British TV series The Great Model Railway Challenge. So that led to the question, if you could create a TV series about trains and railroads, what type of show would you create? You guys proved that your imaginations go far and wide. Let's have a look at some of the comments from Twitter. First from Christopher Kovacs. I'd make something like an episodic version of Come Midnight Monday or Titfield Thunderbolt. An old branch line is due to be ripped up, but with perseverance it survives, and the remaining episodes would be the trials and tribulations of running the railway. Good choice, Chris. As you know, I'm a fan of Titfield Thunderbolt. It's a great movie on railway preservation. And I do think that it would be interesting to see what that type of show would lead to. And we get into that with some of these other comments, as you'll see. Chris Walters says, a reboot of Petticoat Junction, a spin-off show of the Beverly Hillbillies back in the mid to late 1960s. The engine used in the show was Sierra Railway No. 3. It was also the engine used to push the DeLorean up to 88 miles an hour and Back to the Future Part 3. From Facebook, Rick Rowland says, reality shows that follows a group of crazy but devoted preservationists as they travel across the country helping various organizations with projects, a cross between Gold Rush and Dirty Jobs. I could see what that would look like. I think that'd be interesting. This from Hal Humphrey, a sitcom set on the backwoods short line with a crew of misfits that somehow get their jobs done well, in spite of all the craziness that happens around them. Think MASH on a railroad instead of a military hospital. Last comment comes from the website. I would love to see a documentary series in the vein of the History Channel series Trains Unlimited and the PBS series Tracks Ahead, but with a biography format. The focus on the show would be primarily centered on various aspects of railroads of the past and present that are both familiar to some, such as the California Zephyr, Santa Fe Railway, Norfolk and Western, and almost alien to others, various short-line railroads, international rail networks, the preservation movements that have developed in recent years. Also, I'd love for a series to give focus to various photographers, folk heroes, innovators, and artists of both the past and present. All good suggestions. The common thread, and we know this in the world of railroading, is that it is kind of episodic, that you have these events that happen that unfold. Some of them would make for great stories, and we love bringing you those stories here on the show, but to bring them into the TV world, whether it be fictional or nonfiction, that would be very fascinating to see. Hopefully something that we'll see in the future. Your question of the day for this episode is, what is your favorite short line freight railroad? Let me know on the roundhousepodcast.com, links to social media there. If you guys enjoy the series and you want to help out, you can do a one-time donation. We have a link on the roundhousepodcast.com. Every dollar helps for us to be able to cover events. If you like some of our event episodes like Steampunk Unlimited and the mainline excursions, that's a great way to help us out. Thank you so much for being a supporter. Again, I apologize for the infrequency of episodes, and hopefully going into winter, we'll get more on a 1 per month schedule. Thank you as always, and remember that the Roundhouse is our house.